And we're back. We're live on the Joe Show, and this week we got Stephen King talking about his book Misery. It's a very intriguing book.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'll answer all the questions that you need me to ask.
All right, cool. Let's just jump into it, I guess. So, what was your inspiration? I guess there's a lot of unique characters in this book. I mean, there wasn't too many because it's like a very, I guess, like off the radar.
Very isolated.
Isolated is the right word. So there wasn't too many characters, but the characters that you did incorporate into the book, they were very intriguing. Like Paul, he was he's not your everyday guy, you know. He's a author. I mean,
he's a very well-known author for his books. Yes.
For the Misery series that he wrote, and Annie as well. She's a psychotic nurse that I don't know. She just kind of like took the reins when she saw him in a vulnerable position.
Yes. So Paul, he felt changed to his Misery books that he wrote, and I added him to this because I just felt chained to writing my horror fiction as he did. So that's the correlation between that. And that psychotic nurse, Annie, was a representation of my drug problem because while I was writing the book, I had drug issues at the time.
Okay, it's understandable. I mean, you want to draw your own life experiences towards it, and that's how you get that really emotional
Very
book.
personal.
Yeah, very personal, yeah. So could you go more in depth about Annie's issues? I mean, obviously she's a very disturbed person. I mean, there's a lot going on in her head.
Yes. So Annie suffers from a bipolar disorder, and that's why Paul always sees two different sides of her. A very angry side when she neglects him for a few days, or a very nice side, like when she cares for him and tends to his needs. And also people who suffer from bipolar disorder are known to obsess over and stalk celebrities, and that's where it came to the part where when Paul got on the wreck and Annie rescued him, she saw that it was Paul, the creator of these Misery books, and she's a huge fan of these Misery books, and she saw the opportunity to obsess and kidnap him, so she took that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, not your average person would. I mean, if you were a fan, just a normal person, you wouldn't.
Yeah, you just get an autograph or something.
Yeah, an autograph. I'll sign your caster, I guess,
yeah,
on your
seriously.
legs. But obviously, she wasn't thinking straight, and she wasn't thinking about the long term. I mean, his legs were severely injured,
Yes.
and he was never going to be able to walk again because he didn't get the proper care.
Yes.
So she wasn't really thinking about that, but I don't think she cared. She was like, well, I guess if you suffer from bipolar depression,
You wouldn't really know the right thing to do there.
Yeah, because you're
for
so
mental
obsessed.
illness, yeah.
You're so obsessed with this person that you don't care about what they need and what they want. You just want to go into what you want.
Yes.
And also, when he had his book that he was writing that wasn't in the series, and she found the manuscript for that, and she made him burn it because she was unhappy with it because it wasn't in the Misery series. I mean, I guess that's interesting. She was thinking more about herself, and she wasn't really thinking about
What happen with bipolar people? They're all about themselves and not about other people.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't blame them though. It's like, I don't think you're trying to, but it's a disorder. They can't really help it. So, can you go more into depth about the how you chose the setting for it? It's like kind of a unique setting.
Yes, Joe, I'm actually very happy you asked that question. So when Paul got in the crash, I chose a setting where it'd make it very difficult for Paul to escape with his injuries. Colorado is a perfect place because of the mountains and the sense of aloneness and just being out in nature undisturbed. And obviously there's tons of mountains in Colorado and snow and snowstorms, and I added the storms into it because in Gothic and horror literature writing, you tend to add storms as a symbol or foreshadow for bad things to come to the character. And so I add the snowstorm into it to kind of foreshadow that, ooh, Paul's gonna get in the, something bad's gonna happen to him, you know?
It sets an eerie tone.
Yes, it does.
Also, when he initially set off on his journey across America, I mean, he could have taken a flight, but because of the storm, all the flights were canceled. And he was he was drinking a little bit while he was driving. Would you connect that, I guess, to your drug problem?
I would. I mean, like, when I had my drug problem, I mean, I obviously was drunk driving. Probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but luckily, like, nothing bad happened to me, but, you know.
You learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes.
And then you also write about them. But you know what's really interesting, though, is how he started from New York City, and he was trying to make it to, I can't exactly remember where, but somewhere in Colorado, or California, excuse me. But the fact that he made it to Colorado, I mean, he left New York City drunk, and he was drinking on his journey while he was driving in his Camaro. I mean, it just seems kind of crazy that he would make it all the way to Colorado with that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of crazy things in this book, so I guess it's not that far out of the realm of possibility.
I kind of relate it because obviously, like, I never got in a wreck when I was drunk driving, so I kind of, like, put that in the book, like, oh, everything's fine, you know, like, he's drunk driving and it's going good, and just kind of, like, how I thought my life, and, like, I thought, like, oh, I was invincible, like, nothing bad's happening to me, but, so that's kind of what Paul is feeling, is like, oh, I'm invincible, like, I'm a celebrity, like, I wrote all these books, and I have all this money, like, nothing bad's gonna happen to me, and then, obviously, when he gets to Colorado, to that setting I talked about earlier, like, that's when stuff goes down.
Yeah, I'd say that's worst case scenario is being, I mean, I guess if you, while you're drunk driving, you could injure other people, but worst case scenario for you is getting abducted by a crazy lady who loves your novels and having some messed up legs. You can't escape her. I mean, if you do escape, there's really nowhere to go because of the unique setting. You mean, he couldn't drive a car. He couldn't just, like, leave. He was in a wheelchair. He was I guess at the beginning of the novel, he was mostly just laying down, like, sulking until she bought him a wheelchair to move around in. But yeah, it seems it's an interesting concept that he was so reliant on her, yet at the same time, like, he was so dependent that he needed her to live, but at the same time,
He needed to get the heck away from
yeah,
her.
he thought she's crazy. But that's a unique setting. I mean, how you incorporated the landscape into his dilemma. Okay, so you said that you draw, like, personal experiences
Yes.
from your life into your novels. So, if would you be able to, like, draw a connection between how he needed her to survive, yet I mean, he was so dependent on her to live, but at the same time, on the contrary, he
needed actual help.
Right, he needed help. Like, he needed her, but at the same time, she's crazy. Like, he needs to get away from her. Like, how could you draw, like, experiences from your life into that scenario?
So I kind of see as Paul as kind of like I am, except, like, my legs aren't messed up or anything, and Annie being the person who gives drugs to Paul. In correlation, Annie is the drugs that I did. So I was so dependent on doing drugs all the time, like
just getting that high.
Yeah, getting that high and just, like, feeling so good, like, in the moment, that I didn't even think about, like, any, like, my future or how it would affect me or anything like that. Like,
so after the point that you got addicted, you just were chasing that same high.
I was so dependent on it to, like, you know, like, get through the day.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, obviously, if you are addicted to something and you just suddenly stop, there's no, like, there's obviously going to be some negative effects to
And,
your
like-
body and your health and your
And like in
mind.
Paul, like if he stops getting these drugs or whatever, the pain is going to be so bad that he's going to fall into a coma.
Yeah, you
and-
did say that in the book.
Yeah, and that's going to be like
That's worst case scenario.
yeah, that's worst case scenario.
Because then you have this psycho lady that, I mean, if you're unconscious, who knows what she'll do? I mean,
True.
especially, I guess, at least she's keeping him alive, but at the same time,
Not in the best way possible.
yeah, a normal person would take Paul to the hospital.
Yeah, call 911, get an ambulance going.
Yeah, exactly. And then you'd be able to sign his cast, like we
Yeah,
said before.
yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
That's just, it's a cool concept, though, how he relies on her so much, but
Doesn't need her, and
yeah, that's the last thing he needs is her, but at the same time,
it is what he needs
to
survive.
like the fundamental
Yeah.
things in life. I mean,
Just to get through the day, he needs these drugs so he doesn't go into a coma.
yeah. So touching back on when he neglected her, or when she neglected him, rather. So she just left him for a couple of days, in his bed. He had to drink his own urine. He had to he was going in and out of consciousness all the time, and he I guess he couldn't tell time that well, but you could tell that she was purposely leaving him out because of the altercation that they had.
And yeah, when she was leaving him like that on the bed, alone and stuff, he realizes that he needs her to help go to the bathroom and eat and all this stuff. So that kind of plays the part of you need drugs to get through the day, and so that correlates with each other.
Yeah, right. I mean, he couldn't really do much for himself. He couldn't walk. He couldn't do any of those things.
Yeah, he was immobile. He couldn't move to save his life. He couldn't defend for himself. So he was completely dependent.
And you described her as kind of a bigger lady. I mean, she was.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it would have been if he had his legs, he would have been able to get out of that situation. But just the fact that he was so helpless. But kind of wrapping this up, I really enjoyed the book. It was a good read. You always seem to deliver when it comes to writing.
Yeah, thank you.
But we're just about running out of time, and I'm glad to have you on the show.
Oh yeah, no problem, man.
It was a good time. We should do this more often.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hit me up whenever you want.
All right, I'll see you around.